Today, we're really digging into something fundamental, something core to Christian practice, communion.
Right. And our mission here is, well, it's got two parts, really. First, we want to uncover the deep historical roots. Where did this actually come from?
Okay.
And second, we're looking at this strong modern call for a pretty big change, moving it away from just being a reassuring ritual.
Something you just go through the motions for.
Exactly. Toward something that feels more like an emotionally touching experience, something spiritually tangible.
So let's start right at the beginning. Before we even get to the bread and wine, what does communion actually mean, like at its heart?
Yeah, good place to start. The sources define it really nicely as the sharing or exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings.
Especially spiritual ones.
So especially on that mental or spiritual level, it's about connection. And crucially, it involves acknowledging forgiveness. Not just forgiveness, but this idea that God actively forgets our wrongs.
Forgets them completely. Wow. Okay, so that leads to the actual symbols, the bread and the cup.
Precisely. They're the physical stand-ins, you could say. The bread and wine represent Jesus' physical body, his sacrifice. And this sacrifice, well, it set up a whole new agreement, a new covenant.
And that changed everything.
Yeah, monumentally. It meant no more need for ritual animal sacrifices. And, maybe even bigger, no more need for priests to act as go-betweens for getting sins forgiven. That's the huge weight behind the Last Supper.
Right, like in Matthew's Gospel where he says, "This is my blood of the covenant, poured out for many for forgiveness of sins."
Exactly. That's the core. Total access, total forgiveness through this new deal.
Okay, understanding how radical that was means we have to picture the actual room, right? The Last Supper itself, the context is key here.
It's probably the most overlooked piece of the puzzle in how people understand it today. The Last Supper wasn't just, a meaningful dinner.
It was something specific.
It was the annual Passover Seder, the traditional Jewish meal.
Okay, wait. That changes the whole feel, doesn't it? A Seder isn't sad or somber, it's a celebration.
It's absolutely a celebration.
Yeah.
It's about remembering God's act of liberation, freeing the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. Freedom.
And remembering the lamb's blood on the doors protecting them.
Yes, protection from the 10th plague. So Jesus takes this incredibly powerful existing ceremony about freedom.
And he doesn't scrap it, he builds on it.
He repurposes it. He uses that Seder framework, that story of liberation, to talk about a new kind of freedom.
Not freedom from Egypt, but freedom from what?
Freedom from, as the sources put it, the demoralizing, punishing, and detrimental aspects of wrongdoing. Basically, freedom from the destructive power of sin in our lives. His blood replaces the lamb's blood. Universal forgiveness instead of specific protection.
So, after Jesus, how did the very first Christians actually practice this? Before all the churches and formal rituals we see now.
Well, in the very beginning, it was incredibly simple and communal. They called it the breaking of the bread.
Just sharing a meal.
Pretty much. A weekly meal together in people's homes. It was partly remembering the sacrifice, sure, but the sources emphasize it was also about joyful, festive fellowship, unity, community.
But humans being humans, things didn't stay perfect. I remember reading Paul's letters, the problems in Corinth.
Oh yeah, Corinth is a huge red flag for us. You get that warning in 1 Corinthians 11. People were abusing this love feast.
Oh, so?
Some were just treating it like a regular dinner party, getting drunk even. Worse, some were ignoring the poorer members, not sharing. Paul basically says, if you eat and drink without recognizing the body, meaning without understanding the community's unity and the seriousness of it all, you're actually causing harm to yourself, bringing judgment.
So right from the start, there was this tension between the sacred meaning and, well, just human behavior messing it up.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us right up to the modern day and the critiques we're seeing.
Because that festive communal meal, it doesn't always feel like that now, does it?
No. In many places, it's become very formalized, very distilled. It's lost that original core feeling.
And just speaking for myself, I've seen so many versions over the years. Little prepackaged cups passed down the pews, a shared chalice being served by a priest.
Lots of different mechanics.
Yeah. And sometimes, honestly, it feels like just going through the motions, an obligation. That feeling of something truly spiritually tangible is often missing, especially, I think, for younger people.
And that feeling, that spiritual disconnect, is right at the heart of this call for change we mentioned. The sources argue that when it becomes just a reassuring ritual,
something that makes you feel okay because you did the thing.
Right, then it stops being truly transformative. It doesn't feel like anything meaningful. So the idea is, let's strip away the parts that are useless or just empty ritual and get back to the basics.
But before we get deeper into that spiritual longing, there's another really practical issue raised in the sources, right? A health thing.
Yes, and it's a very down-to-earth concern, especially now. The argument is blunt. Some traditional ways of doing communion are just classic ways to spread germs, communicable diseases.
Like passing a common cup that everyone drinks from. Or even having dozens of people breathe or speak over the elements before they're shared.
Exactly. Think about people in the congregation who might be immunocompromised or have other health risks. For them, the traditional ceremony could shift from being spiritually nourishing to being physically dangerous. It's a real, practical reason why some reform seems necessary.
Okay, so we have this feeling of spiritual emptiness for some and practical health risks for others. When newer generations say they want something spiritually tangible, what are they actually asking for?
It's not necessarily about needing something physical to touch, though the elements are physical. It's more about wanting an experience that connects emotionally, that feels real and meaningful.
An emotional connection to the divine truth behind it all.
Precisely. They want to feel the connection, not just perform a ritual about it.
So how do we get that connection without just relying on the old, familiar ceremonies?
Well, the alternative approach is to see spirituality as something you live. It's an experience. So the real communion experience isn't just the ceremony, it's in the recounting. Talking about what Jesus means in our lives today. What living as a Christian actually does, day to day.
Making the story personal, moving it from ancient history into right now.
Exactly. It needs to become part of our own narrative.
Okay, if the aim is making it participatory, personal, and emotionally resonant, then using the original Seder pattern makes perfect sense. It was already designed to be immersive.
The Seder is a brilliant model. It's all about recounting. You have the Haggadah, the script, guiding everyone through the story of slavery, freedom, the miracles.
And you use physical things to make it stick, right? Like the unleavened bread, the matzah.
Representing the haste they left Egypt in.
And the bitter herbs, the myrrh.
To taste the bitterness of slavery. They're not just abstract symbols. They're sensory anchors for memory. They trigger feeling.
And the most powerful part.
The Seder explicitly tells everyone participating to see themselves as if they personally came out of Egypt. It connects the past directly to the present. That participatory structure is what we need to bring back.
All right, so let's walk through how this alternative communion based on the Seder might actually look. The sources seem to lay out a few key steps, starting with the recounting.
Right, so instead of just the standard brief on the night he was betrayed.
Formula.
The institution narrative.
Yeah. Instead of that, the service becomes a fuller retelling of the whole Christian story of redemption, but focusing specifically on our ongoing present-day need for deliverance from those detrimental aspects of wrongdoing that still affect us.
Making it relevant to now. Okay, step 2 sounds like the big shift. Participatory storytelling.
This is where it moves from passive watching to active engagement. It's where individual experience connects with the community.
How does that work in practice? Well, you know how the Seder asks, why is this night different from all other nights? This alternative communion could ask something similar like, why are we taking this meal together today?
And that's the cue for people to share.
Yes, but focused sharing, not just random thoughts. It's an invitation for people to briefly share something about their own experience of the bitterness of my slavery, whatever form that takes in their life, and then the joy of my liberation through their faith.
But couldn't that get awkward? Or someone might talk for too long. Some people prefer quiet reflection.
That's a valid point. The key is keeping it focused and brief. It's not meant to be long monologues, just short personal testimonies tied to that theme of the journey from struggle to freedom. It makes the act of remembering active and shared without letting it get bogged down.
So it becomes a shared journey we're taking together in that moment, not just remembering something that happened long ago.
Okay, and the third piece is rethinking the symbolic elements themselves. Exactly. It's about using the bread and wine to follow that emotional journey we just talked about. So you start with the bread as the bread of affliction.
Like the bitter herbs, a moment for confession, acknowledging the bitterness, the need for help.
Acknowledging the wound, yes. Then that same bread becomes the bread of our freedom, representing the liberation, Jesus' sacrifice that makes freedom possible.
And the wine.
The wine comes last, reframed as the cup of the covenant. This marks the culmination, a moment of joyful, festive celebration of the freedom we've received. It turns a quiet, perhaps somber moment into an actual emotional arc, ending in shared joy.
This sounds much more dynamic, But creating this kind of flexible participatory experience bumps right up against church structures, doesn't it? Like the whole issue of who's allowed to lead communion.
Oh, absolutely. The sources protest pretty strongly against limiting communion only to ordained priests or ministers.
Seeing that as an abuse of power.
Yes. They argue it's a throwback to the old temple system, where only certain priests could perform rituals. It kind of ignores the whole point of the new covenant Jesus established.
Which was about direct access for everyone.
Exactly. No intermediary needed. The sources point to Jesus' own words in Matthew. For where 2 or 3 have gathered together in my name, I am there in their midst.
So connecting with God, receiving forgiveness, that's a lived thing, not just a ceremony performed by a special person.
That's the argument. If communion is fundamentally a lived experience of that connection, then theoretically any recognized leader, maybe even anyone within that gathered community, could facilitate this kind of participatory remembrance. It democratizes it.
Okay, so if restricting access is one kind of potential abuse, what's the deeper spiritual danger we should be wary of here?
The real danger, according to the sources, is hypocrisy. It's separating the ritual act from how you actually live your life.
Like checking the communion box, but then not living differently.
Precisely. There's that historical warning to the people in ancient Israel who went through the motions of temple feasts and sacrifices, but then treated people badly the rest of the time.
Their actions outside the temple made the ritual meaningless.
And the modern danger is similar, using the idea of easy forgiveness as an excuse, almost, to not take seriously the responsibilities that come with faith the rest of the week. The most moving ceremony means nothing if it doesn't change how we live afterwards.
Which means communion has to come with a charge, right? A mandate for action?
Absolutely, that's what gives it teeth. The sources boil it down to 2 core commands that should flow directly from the experience. Love others, like Jesus said in John 13, and the golden rule, do to others as you would have them do to you, from Matthew and Luke. That's the proof that communion has actually sunk in.
And ultimately, the sources suggest this should lead towards something they call Christ consciousness. What does that mean in practical terms?
Basically, it means aiming to live in a state of constant conscious connection with God. It's not just a Sunday morning thing.
It's an all-the-time thing.
It's realizing that everything we do can be an expression of our spirituality, our connection. Every choice, every interaction becomes part of this ongoing communion, this relationship.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. By looking back to the Seder pattern, the idea is to shift communion away from being maybe a silent individual ritual focused on history.
And transform it into a lively, communal sharing of our own ongoing stories of liberation, stories we're living out right now.
Recovering that original feel of the breaking of the bread, personal, shared, and actually celebratory.
Exactly, celebrating the freedom we have now.
And as we finish this deep dive, the sources leave us and you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on.
Yeah, it's this. To really find ourselves, we have to figure out what's genuinely important to us. We need to actually pay attention to our lives, learn from them. And sometimes that means being willing to clear away the stuff that's become meaningless or sterile, things we do just out of habit.
Old rituals that don't resonate anymore.
Right, clearing that away to rediscover what is essential, what truly feeds our spirit. So the challenge is really personal. What ritual, what habit, maybe even what belief are you holding on to that might actually be blocking you from something more important, more real? Pay attention to your life. Learn from it.
A powerful challenge. And we'll end with that quote that seems to tie it all together.
Our answer is God. God's answer is us. Together we make the world better.